Dang it! Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Mr. High Llama, and today we are going to continue our conversation about space planes. Specifically, today we're actually going to go to space. And last we left off, we had this little number. Last episode was our starter plane, the first one that we made to demonstrate some of the basics of the aerodynamics of the game. And he's a great little plane, and we're going to use him as a starting point for talking about how to actually get into space. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and kill Richwin with a nice little ditch into the water, and then we'll head into the vehicle building and get to work right away on our first space plane. So, perfect. He's dead. Revert to hangar. Okay, welcome, and thank you for joining me. Now, here is the plane. This is what we got. We talked about our centers of mass and our centers of lift and how we like to line everything up and how much wing we need for how much mass we have. And just as a refresher, the general rules were, let me go ahead and take these off, that you want, take these off, your center of lift, well, okay, you start off by making your wings that are going to lift up the plane. You want at least one lift for every ton. So every 1,000 kilograms of mass, you want one wing, or one lift rating on your wing. The lift ratings are listed. If you go here and you right click, it'll say your lift rating. So these are about 2 apiece, and I've got 2 of them, so that's 4, and we're under 4, so that's fine. And then you wanted to take your wings and line them up directly with the center of mass, like so. Okay, when you first start. Then you take your elevators and you use them to create drag at the back of the plane to pull the center of lift back so that your plane doesn't flip forward on you. And you do the same thing with your rudder. And now you'll see the center of lift is well behind the center of mass. We moved our fuel tanks and all the heavy weight way to the back of the plane so that as the fuel drains, the center of mass actually moves forward instead of backward. Very cool thing. And let's go ahead and put all this stuff back on there where it goes. Like a hole. Brilliant. And we had a little plane just like that. It wasn't this exact one. Actually, I lost my save file when I updated some of the mods, and things were broken because of Kerbal Engineer. So we've now got a new version of Kerbal Engineer that won't break things, and we're going to continue from here. So I'm going to go ahead and start to change the things that we need to change in order to turn this into a space plane. And the very first thing is this cockpit. We're going to talk mass, right? You have a payload that you want to deliver into space, and that payload weighs something. So you want to minimize the amount of mass of every part possible with the exception of your payload. And the first thing that we can do is look here. You have the standard Mk1 cockpit, which has a mass of 1.28, versus the Mk2 cockpit, which is the same size and same crew, but 1.03. So it weighs a little bit less. It may seem minuscule at first, and it is kind of nitpicking, but it will help us. So let's get rid of this cockpit and throw it away. There you go. This guy, he's the one we want. Now let's learn about him. He has a torque of 10, which is great. So that means he can roughly control 10 tons worth of weight behind its center of mass. So as long as our weight is below 10 tons, he has enough reaction wheel torque to deal with our ship, which is fine because we're only using one engine, so we'll be well below that. Okay, and we're going to talk, let's see, let's go ahead and keep building. Where were we? Now, it is a space plane, right? And as such, it requires rocket fuel because the jet fuel, or just the liquid fuel by itself, obviously will not work in an engine in space, right? There's no air in space, no one can hear you scream and all that good stuff, right? So you're gonna need some oxidizer, but you don't need a lot of oxidizer because most of the trip is gonna be spent in the atmosphere. So let's go ahead and we're gonna say that for the most part, the fuel spent getting into orbit will be 2/3 liquid fuel, 1/3 oxidizer. So 2/3 of the energy that we're going to expend is actually going to be atmospheric. So we're going to spend that much energy in the atmosphere. So this should be plenty enough. I'll overestimate just a little bit just to be safe, and we'll probably have plenty of room for the weight anyway. And engines. This little guy right here is no longer going to work for you. If you read the standard description, it's a standard air-breathing engine. This model utilizes limited range thrust vectoring. The engine works best at low cruising speeds and altitudes, meaning the higher we go, the less efficient it becomes, to eventually the point where it'll just shut down. And that's around 15,000 meters. It's pretty much going to put out zero thrust, and we'll no longer be able to use it. So it's not going to do the trick for us. We want something that actually gets faster and stronger the higher up it goes. And that would be the turbojet engine, which peaks out at about 20,000 meters, but will continue performing at diminishing thrust grades all the way up to about 50,000 meters. So very, very awesome. We want this guy. And we're going to assume that you don't have the tech tree filled out to use the Rapier engine. If you have your tech tree filled out that far, you probably don't need to be watching this tutorial anyway. But yes, you should. I actually prefer to not use the Rapier engine, and maybe you'll see why later. It's a very good engine, but we'll talk about that next episode. And we also need our intakes. Now, by now, if you've unlocked this, you've also unlocked this. So a proper turbofan intake not only provides oxygen to air-breathing engines, it pulls twice as much as the air as those stupid air scoops. These are all but worthless. Stop using them if you've been using them, and we're just going to go ahead and throw them away. And I'll throw one of these guys right on the front here. This will not be enough. It will not. The air gets extremely, extremely thin the higher up we go. I don't know what's up with all these things. Why I have 3 of them, but I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, it gets extremely thin, so we'll need a lot of intakes in order to pull in the air. And we will need these ram air intakes. I have done it with just these, but these certainly do help a lot. And where's my engineer? There it is. Okay, so we're at about 4,000 pounds now. As a general rule, I like to assume that using just 2 to 3 ram air intakes, one of these engines is good for lifting about 6,000 kilograms max, including the weight of the engine. So this setup will be fine for that. We also need rocket engines, so let's find a way to put the rocket engines. You may or may not have unlocked the cubic octagonal strut. It does come pretty late in the game for some stupid reason, so let's assume you don't have that and put on some of these, because you should have these at this point in the game, and if you don't, get them. Get them definitely. We don't want any fuel in them though. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. We're just using them as a base to mount things on, and they are pretty light once you remove the fuel. So you see 0.22 in liquid and 0.227 in oxidizers. That's 49. So 0.49 of the mass, so it's just 0.1 mass anyway, so it's no big deal. No big deal. And we want... Now, you may say, okay, you want a lot of thrust or something, or you'd be used to using the engines like you'd use to take off from the launch pad. Don't do that. They weigh an awful lot. 1 1/4. We are going to be using our plane by itself to get up to ridiculously high speeds, so well over 2,000 meters per second, right? So we actually don't need that much delta V to come from the jet engines themselves, which is why we actually don't need very much rocket fuel at all. So if we use, let's say this, the liquid fueled engine, it puts out a thrust of 50 and it would be fine. That would be more than enough to push our engine, but its mass is 0.5, so for the same mass, even though it is kind of efficient, 390 in the vacuum, its mass is 5 times greater than one of these, so I could actually use 2 of these and get a thrust of 60 and still weigh half as much as one of these. So that's what we're going to do. Remember, mass is everything. And as we talked about, we're going to go ahead and put on these little intakes, and I like to have them go in a way that looks kind of cool. right? That's kind of neat. And there you have it. So that's a cool little look that we'll have. And that's just the body, and all of our mass is way back here, which may or may not be a problem, but I think we can handle it. And we've got plenty of room to stick cool little things. We are going to space, so all the things that you would need for going into space, you will also need for your space plane. So we'll go ahead and put some batteries on there, and maybe a solar panel right there. Excellent. Excellent. Still under 5, so plenty of thrust to weight ratio on this. And really, we probably don't need that many wings. Our landing speed may be a little higher than we want, but shouldn't be a big deal. Alright. Alright, not working with me, so let's go ahead and see about maybe something like that. That gives us all the lift we actually need, but it's not really a cool look that I would like to have, so maybe on top. Would on top be better? Let's see about on top. Maybe bowed up a little bit, like that. That's too much, huh? Oh yeah, that's the bomb diggity right there. Okay, okay. And sticking with vanilla parts for now. How are we gonna make this look? Pull that center of lift way on back. And I'm building it in the same manner, just trying to find cool places to put all of our wings. So those will be our elevators. And we need a cool rudder. I guess this guy will still do the trick. If I can line him up properly. There we go. Yeah. He will control y'all. Remember to set up your fins properly. If you don't, your control surfaces are going to be flinging you all over the sky. That's no good. Nobody likes that. And I think that's all the parts that we need. Well, okay, let me get some. I probably don't even need them, but for a plane this small, but we'll go ahead and throw some control surfaces on here. I always forget to do the symmetry like a darn fool. There we go. Just so that it looks neat. Obviously, this can't be docked, so I don't need any RCS. It's just for getting one man up into space and I guess returning back, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's not a very practical plane, but for giggles, it'll do the job in terms of a really small SSTO. So let's go ahead and put our landing gear on. It's a final touch. And let's see if I can sneak it up there. That's cool. Just like that. That's the way we learned it. Maybe that's back a little too far. Let's see. Like that. Yeah, that's right under the center of lift. That's good. Okay. We want to set up a couple action groups. Don't forget to set up your action groups. They'll kill you if you don't. Toggle that engine. When you toggle the engine, you want to make sure that you're shutting down all the intakes, because the intakes create drag if they're not attached to an engine that's currently on. So if you turn the engine off, then the intakes will start to create drag, and they may create it unbalanced. So it'll pull the front of your aircraft back. In this case, my intakes are actually behind my center of mass, so they won't cause a problem at all. But if your intakes are in the front of your plane, they can flip your plane backwards. So we'll make sure that they turn off when we turn off the engine. On a separate action group, we can turn the engines on. The rocket engines, I mean. And on another action group, you know what? This won't work like that, so Well, maybe the game will glitch and it'll actually just poke it right through. So that'll be interesting to find out. Okay, and I believe, let's call this first SSTO. Hope it works well, or I'll be embarrassed on YouTube. We need some fuel line things. Fuel line things. Aha! Can't see a darn thing. Can I fit it up in here? Can I get up in there? Come on. Come on, let me in. Let me in. Let me in here. Alright, you gonna make me do tricky trick? Tricky tricky. Come on. Oh. Nope. Nope. Get right here. Get right there. Oh, heck. Okay. Can I do it from down here? Maybe? You let me do from down there? Dang it. Daggum wheels in my way. Will they let me do like that? Nope. Wheels are in my way. Wheels have gotta go. Okay. That's fine. I got another place for them. I'd rather put them anyway. I'd rather they be on the outside. That'll give us a little more stability on landing anyhow. So. Something like that. Oh, heck. How did I get that all twisted? That should be good. Okay. Great. Save that. And we try again. Round 2. Kerwin, do it. Richwin, excuse me. Oh, I may have put him too far back again. No biggie. Here we go. That's much better. Already in the air. Taking off. And here's the technique, folks. This is how I like to do it. 45-degree angle up. Fast forward. If you built your ship right, it should be a problem. Shouldn't be a problem. Fast forward. Straight up. Into Orbis. SSTO Mark 1. 10,000 feet. Roll down to about 15 degrees. It may take a second for it to do it. Just be patient and let her do it. Don't overstress her, especially if you're playing on Ferrum. But we'll do that in another episode. Okay, so between 10,000 and 15,000, we're going to get a ton of thrust out of this thing. You see the thrust is just boosting through the roof. We'll peak at about 215, I think. When we get to 1,000 meters per second, I'm going to go ahead and pitch down to about 10. Actually, I'm already at 10 degrees, so that's kind of cool. I am going to try to never exceed 100 meters per second vertical speed. If you do that, you risk going up too fast and not horizontal fast enough to keep air going into your intakes, and you may get flame out. So you do want to resist the urge to blast straight off into space. When I get to 20,000 feet, I'm going to pretty much level off entirely and just start working on that horizontal speed. We really got to go fast to get into space. We want to get into orbital velocity before we actually leave the atmosphere. So there's our 20. I'm going to go ahead and try to level off almost completely for a little bit and really start working on speed. Once you cross 1,000 meters per second, it seems as though no matter where you point, eventually you will start to climb again, and that is because you're actually going faster forward in a straight line, and the Earth curves beneath you. So you actually gain altitude by virtue of your speed. So that's kind of cool. By the time we get to about 25,000 meters, we do want to be going 2,000 meters per second. I don't know if I'm going to reach that goal this time around. But if you don't do that on your STO, you may consider adding more air intakes, because if you're not going that fast, you're going to start getting flame outs. So your goal is for 2,000 meters per second at 25,000 meters altitude. If you're not hitting that, add some more intakes, and eventually you'll get the speed that you need. So I'm going ahead, and I'm just going to rest here for a little while until I gain the speed I need. Alright, I'm a little late on my 2,000 meters per second, but it shouldn't be too big of an issue. You can see my engine's thrust is rapidly decreasing. That means I am not getting enough air. But on this particular engine, I don't really need very much air, so that's kind of a good thing. Going plenty fast enough. By the time you get to 30,000 meters, you do want to be going orbital velocity, so close to 2,400 meters per second orbital. Which, if you built it according to these specs, no matter what your craft is, should not be a problem. Let's see, it's not a problem for us here. So, eventually we're going to start getting flameouts, and they should start occurring very soon. When you do start getting flameouts, you'll just throttle back, and the engine will kick back on. You give it less fuel, it actually requires less oxygen, so it will keep running. You don't want your engines to cut out, especially only at 30,000 meters, because there's a lot of air drag here. You don't want to engage your rocket engines here. You'll just be wasting a lot of fuel. So we want to just fly the entire way. If you hit M and check out your map view, you can see we've already got a pretty huge orbit. Our apoapsis is actually already in its climbing. It'll probably get close to around 200 to 210 meters, so kilometers I should say. We've already got a periapsis, and that'll keep growing as well, so we have things well in hand. Oop. And you see my engine just flamed out. You may have heard that. I can't tell. I don't know if you could or not. So I just throttle back a little bit, and I throttle back in stages. So just a quarter, or what is that, a third. And I flamed out again, and then I'll go down to 1/3 and get a little bit more thrust. And you can see I'm already at 40,000. 40,000 is an okay time if you have to engage your rocket engines here. That's fine. There's not enough drag in the environment to negate what you're putting in with your rockets. So, yeah, but why use them at all if you don't have to? So that just helps you keep more oxidizer once you're in space. Alright, and I'm on my last stage of using my engine now, and I'm almost at 50,000 meters, so very high. The atmosphere is absolutely nothing up here. And you can see my thrust is only 1.2 kilonewtons, but that's actually all I need. I'm already at orbital velocity, so all I actually need is enough thrust to negate drag. And I'm obviously doing that. As you can see, my apoapsis is still climbing, just off the power of... Well, I just flamed out. Can I get any more? Can I get any more? I can get a little bit more out of it. So, let's see what I got. Yeah, pretty close to 200,000. So that's awesome. And that's about it. So we'll go ahead and use our activation. I try to not switch off the jets until 60,000, which we did. So I actually never even needed to use my rockets. The rockets will strictly be for orbital insertion in this case. That may not always be the case, and will likely not always be the case, especially the heavier your SSTOs get. It does not seem to be a linear progression in the amount of air that you need versus the number of engines that you have. So I don't know if that's a glitch in the code of the game, but it is definitely the case. So I'll go ahead and meet you guys in orbit in a couple seconds. Alright, I'm going to do our insertion burn. I actually started a little bit too early, but it's no big deal. You see we've got plenty of fuel to do the job. Bada bing, there we go. Solar panels up. We can do our EVA if we want to. Yippee. You can see how small our spacecraft is. I mean, it's absolutely nothing. It's unfortunate that they don't have a cockpit, an internal IVA yet, but hopefully that's coming. I hear that is coming for version 25. So, fingers crossed for that, but don't get your hopes up. Alright, I mean that's pretty much the deal right there. Nothing really to it. You got a nice circular orbit, 194, 197, so that's not bad. let's talk about re-entry. Here's how I like to do it. I find that when I get right behind this little peninsula right here, it's a good time to put my periapsis right here, and I'll try to put it around 20 kilometers. It changes for Ferrum Aerospace because they actually have accurate drag models on the vehicle, so depending on the size of your vehicle is going to drastically impact what you need to set your periapsis. But for the basic game, 20 to 25 kilometers is good, so we'll do that. Let's go ahead and fast forward until I'm in the right place. So right about there is good, and let's make ours 20 and hope for the best. $19 came in a little shy, so that is no big deal. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stability control and put away my solar panels and fast forward to re-entry, and we'll talk landing. Okay, and we just re-entered the atmosphere way back here. It looks like we're, oop, where are we? Way over here. So we've got quite a ways to go, but hopefully we will not overshoot. Overshooting's a pain, undershooting's easy to deal with, but overshooting is kind of can be a problem. I just pretty much fast forward and keep my nose pointing forward. Go ahead and turn off the rockets, won't need them. Turn back on the engine and our intakes to create a little drag for us. Yeah, it looks like we're definitely going to be overshooting. I really would like to be around 20 to 30 at max altitude by the time you cross the mountains. If that isn't the case, what you're going to need to do is pitch almost completely vertical, which of course the aerodynamics are going to fight you the entire way. You just keep forcing it down as hard as you possibly can. In real life this would destroy your plane, but thank goodness it's not Ferrum. We shouldn't have any trouble getting on in. I hope. Man, we are really high. Don't ever lose hope. Just push down as hard as you can. Obviously, we're going to have to turn around at some point, but what we really want to do is lose altitude and speed as quickly as possible, though, so that we don't get too far away and have to fly back on limited amount of fuel. Oh, that would be quite awful. So, and there, we're losing speed quick, and we're going down fast, so that's good. And once we're at around 5,000 meters, we'll be able to turn around and head in for landing, and hopefully not too far away from KSC. Cool little Mach effects. I'm gonna go ahead and get my engines spinning. Throw that there if I need them. And this time I like to turn off the stability control and use trim and manual controls to make sure that I'm flying level and other such things. Alright, and we're pretty much right on target with where we want to be, so that's good. You want to trim so that you're going down between 10 to 20 meters per second. Vertical velocity. So not too much faster than that, or you may have to do some really hard pulling up at the last second. Go ahead and try to get a little better angle. Come in straighter to the runway. This is a horrible landing because I'm actually landing against the wind. You're supposed to take off and land in the same direction. that's okay. It's just a Kerbal Space Program. Try not to go too slow before you hit the runway, obviously. You want to be able to still maintain pitch control, so if you can't pull up at the last minute, you got a problem. Do a little quick save in case you die. Unless you're not playing that way. If you're playing hardcore, I just hope you're good at what you're doing. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and cut throttle entirely. And pitch down to maintain velocity. Now that we're pretty much completely lined up. Come on, baby. On the numbers, on the numbers. Yeah. Right, look at this. Look at us just coasting in nice and easy. Flare. And there you go. Go ahead and hit the brakes. Set your trim back to normal. If you don't remember how to use the trim controls, it's Alt plus your directional keys, WASD, Q, and E. And there you have it. Landed. Recover vesicle. So that's the basic idea. So now let's talk payload. If you're playing the career mode now, there's all kinds of different missions that you need to do. And what would you want to use an SSTO for? I'd say one of the coolest and probably most obvious features would be to use an SSTO for the Kerbal rescue missions, especially one of this size would be perfect. And to do such things as these, you just grab this guy, blitty bop badoop bop boop, and whatever kind of command, you know, automated command pods you have is fine. You may want to add some structural elements, but it is small enough you probably don't need them. And there you go. That would be a nice Kerbal rescue vehicle. Just like that. You just make sure that when you launch, you take your guy out and launch unmanned, and then you're good to go. So, right? Now, what if your goal is, I mean, here's what everybody wants to do, is basically send fuel up to a space station, right? That's what you want to do. Fuel to a space station. Well, I have your answer. I have your answer. Let's see. Dockable SSTO right here. Following the exact same principles that we talked about before. It doesn't deliver very much fuel. It's very simple. I am not using any part clipping in this, and you will find that the bigger you want to make your SSTO, the more mass there is, the more engines you have. The ratio of air intakes to engine is not linear. So with one engine, it only took us 2 intakes. I could have done it with 2. I had an extra one there, 3. If you have 2 engines, they really need 3 to 4 intakes apiece. If you have 6 engines, they need 4 to 6 intakes apiece. It's, for some reason, not linear. Even though your thrust to weight ratios are the same, your mass ratio is the same, to engine, I mean, the number of intakes that'll be required are completely different. So I don't know why that is. It may be a function of the amount of drag on the vehicle. I'm not sure. But it does seem to be the case. So, let's go ahead and whip up another one. And see what we can't do. Let's come up with a mission and work it the same way that we did, you know, an unusual shape. Say we want to get... I couldn't tell you. Listen, put up space. I want to deliver a Kerbal payload to a space station. Okay, let's deliver that Kerbal payload to a space station. Let's see, what's a good place to store Kerbals efficiently? That would be 1.2 for 2 Kerbals. That's a little bit more than that. Let's have Capula. That's no good. What about structural? Than a single one of the other engines. These bad boys right here. 0.5. Together, this is still 0.4. Daggum bleeding game be crash all the time. Daggum bleed game, man. Game. Watch, our ship ain't even here. I hope they autosave that joint. You autosave? Where's auto save ship? 34 parts, load up. Dang it, man. Didn't save a darn thing. Get out of my face, man. Here's an interesting point to make. When you're considering building your vehicle, if it has to have docking capabilities like this one does, look at the inline clampetron. Very cool. Opening doors, closing doors, great things. Weighs 0.3. Regular clampetron, 0.05. So you're going to have 6 of these bad boys for every one of these. 6? 1. Only difference is this thing has no drag, but I don't know if the drag has been implemented on these yet. I don't think they have. You could do one of these bad boys instead if you wanted and still have 3 of them compared to one of those, but you have to have something to mount it to, unfortunately. So, but for the time, look, the drag ain't even any different. Only difference is it's got funky opening things. Just forget it. Slap one of these guys on there. Save yourself the mess. That's what I say. Slap it. Slap it on. Daggum game crash. Forget it, man. Also, if you can avoid using these things, do so. They are pretty heavy. But in our case, we can't really avoid it if we're trying not to use part clipping. So we're going to go ahead and use it. I'm going to go ahead and do 4 intakes per engine on this because I'm worried that since our mass is a little higher, we're not going to have quite the thrust to get going fast enough to keep our intakes going. So a little extra intake, and that also gives us a little extra rocket power as well. Should we need it? I doubt we'll need it. Probably won't. Center of mass is way back. It might be tricky to get a cool look going and still be functional. But we'll see what we can do. Okay, let's see. I got 2, 4, 6, 8 on each side. That's 16. That's plenty more than enough mass. Here's the issue. All of our lift is directly in the back, so we're not going to be able to get elevators in the back, so we're actually going to have to use canard elevators in the front. So this is an inverse style. Kind of problematic because now I need to find a way to get our center of lift to remain behind. So what you need to do in this case is make sure, just like you did before, that you do have enough lift under the center of mass to lift the entire vehicle, and then apply extra lift to the rear to compensate for the lift that you apply to the front. So, finding something that we can do. Okay, so I got my canard elevators up front, and my center of mass and lift are still appropriately oriented, so that's good. Going for overkill in terms of rudders, because now that I have 2 engines side by side, when one flames out, the whole thing will tend to yaw one side or the other. I find that the game prefers the left side, so it will always yaw left. You're going to want that good strong SAS module and a lot of torque on the rudder in order to prevent your vehicle from spinning out of control. Okay, there we have it. Dockable, RCS equipped, 2 engines capable of lifting 4 crew, 1 pilot, and docking. Could be a good crew transfer module, and also a good Kerbal rescue. Only 2 engines. pretty well equipped. First time I've ever built such a thing. Let's go ahead and see if we can get it into orbit with enough fuel left over to perform a docking maneuver. Following the same exact climb procedure as I did before. It is a little less powerful than the one before, so I do have the extra intakes. So now I've got 4.5 intakes per engine. Hopefully that will compensate for the fact I don't have quite the same thrust to weight ratio that I had before. But we'll see! We'll see! Over the hump at this point. It's going up without a hitch anymore. I did run into a little trouble around 30 kilometers. A little bit. Where I was getting some torquing and I had to throttle back a little sooner than I would have liked to, but overall we did have plenty enough power to get to where we want, so the 4 intakes per engine is enough. If my thrust to weight ratio was any worse, it would have taken more intakes. And obviously, I try to keep a realistic looking look for the ships. To achieve that in any larger ships than this, it's going to take quite a bit of ingenuity, I guess. But there is a technique to it, and it does involve cheating, and we'll talk about that next. I just want to prove that I can get this into orbit a little bit. Time to throttle back just a little bit more. Let's see what kind of orbit we're looking at here. Oh, we're way out there, so plenty of fuel. I probably should cut it off and keep my liquid fuel and everything similar to my oxidizer so I can burn my rockets while in space. And touchdown. Perfect flying by me yet again. Point proven. 4-man crew delivered to whatever the heck you wanted to within a 200,000 meter orbit. That's pretty good. Most space stations are certainly nearer than that. If you wanted to go farther, obviously you'd have to do a larger space plane that could carry more fuel. Recover that home. And Richmond lives again. Now, let's talk something else. Let's talk more practical. A practical dockable SSTO that I have made. It involves delivering about, what is it, 800 liquid oxidizer. I got 2 440s right here, right? It will deliver a payload. Now, you'll see here, it weighs quite a bit. It's got 4 engines, 4 times 5 being 20. We've got a total weight of 21, so it weighs a little bit more than it's supposed to, and in order to make up for that, I had to add a lot more ram air intakes. Now, to do this, there is a technique. I will show it to you. It does involve part clipping, and the larger you make your SSTO, the more part clipping you're going to have to do. It's just the nature of the beast. In the game, they do not currently have a large-scale air intake, so for larger parts or for really heavy SSTOs. So until they do implement a new part, to build really large ones, you will notice if you watch any other YouTube videos, everybody's doing this. It's just the way of it. Don't blame yourself and don't call it cheating. It's just the fact that they have not implemented yet a large-scale air intake. I'm sure they will eventually, but they haven't done so yet. So until then, you kind of have to make your own larger intakes by slapping a whole bunch of them together. So let me go ahead and open up a thing so I can show you how to do that. Do not believe about. Let's do a large payload. Let me get one strapped together here real quick, and I'll be right back. so I've got the basic idea of what I want to accomplish here. I want to get basically this much liquid fuel and oxidizer into space, and that has worked out to be a mass of about 43,000 kilograms. Once in space, I want to have efficient fuel burning thing so that I could travel, I don't know, to another planet, maybe Duna or some such like that. There. And let me split these. How do I? Where are you? There you are. Get you off of there. There we go. Okay. In order to do this, you will see that my thrust to weight ratio with just these engines, which are not currently, well, they should be fueled. Not all of them are fueled. Let's go ahead and hook them up so that the math starts looking better. Okay, and as you can see, our thrust to weight ratio is only 2.13, which is not really high enough to fly the way that I enjoy flying. So you kind of have to cheat a little bit on the intakes in order to get the performance out of the vehicle that you're going to want. In order to do that, it's going to take these little small struts, and you're going to have to Alt F12 and turn on Allow Part Clipping. That is the cheating that we're going to be doing. And undo whatever damage I just did. Okay. And it's going to take about 4 intakes per engine. And I'm going to use 5 just to be safe. So you slap on your struts just like that. And starting from the outside, working back, add 1 at a time intakes going back. Check your symmetry, because sometimes the game likes to turn my symmetry off without me touching it or telling it to do so. I don't know why it does that, but it certainly does sometimes. So do be careful of that, and you end up with this kind of look. It looks horrible, I know. You can try to cover it up with wings as best you can, but pretty much that's how this does. You can't, I guess in the new version of the game, at least it doesn't let me do this, copy anything that is part clipped. So if I try to control copy this and paste it over and over again, it actually won't allow me to do that. I guess I can show you. I don't know if there's something wrong with my game. If you know what it is, please let me know, because it drives me crazy. I would like to be able to part clip these things on, but it doesn't let me. Look at it, look at it do. It do cray. It do cray. Can't place. Maybe like that. No, see how I did that? It wouldn't let me place it. I clicked, but it didn't let me place it. So you kind of have to do them one at a time. And even worse than that, you do have to, you know, assign the action groups for them for every single intake. So that's a lot of clicking. Kind of a pain in the butt, which is why you get to watch me do it in fast forward. Lucky you, because I'm stuck here doing this again for like the millionth time. So I'll talk to you guys again when I'm all done. Okay, so there's the idea. That's how to do. And now the goal is to turn this into a ship that'll actually fly and go into space, following the same exact rules that we did before. So let me go ahead and slap some wings on it right now. Well, geez, there you go. I mean, first try without even putting everything together. We've already got a pretty decent apoapsis. So, and you know, the engines aren't even strapped down right. I don't have my docking port, and I don't have my RCS and all set up. But, I mean, you're going to get into orbit with quite a lot of fuel. What, 4 of these makes up one of the big orange tanks, right? So, I mean, that's pretty outstanding. Outstanding? Outstanding? That's pretty awesome. Freaking heck. And, you know, pretty much a full complement. So that's, if you dock this to something, actually it's so big you'd probably have to dock something to it. But regardless, I mean, job done. You've got a ton of fuel or a ton of payload, whatever you want to put up into space. That's pretty awesome, and with that knowledge, you can make any SSTO. So I think that's going to wrap up this episode. I mean, it's fairly obvious that you can make a ship any size. Now, the part count on this is getting kind of high. I think it's like 150 or so parts. I don't know. I'd have to take a peek. But it's getting kind of high. So to go larger than this, your part counts are going to get to the point where you're actually going to break your game. So you'd start having to move into modded parts so that you'd have larger wing surfaces and better intakes and that sort of thing, which we're going to get into next episode. We'll talk about the Rapier engines, and we're going to talk about Ferrum Aerospace, and we're going to talk about making planes and space planes in Ferrum Aerospace, and better wings and all kinds of different things. So stay tuned for the next episode, episode 3 of Mario teaches you how to build space planes of every kind, and blah de blow, and bleed blah bloop bleep blop. There you go, folks. Thanks for watching. Remember to click like and subscribe if you liked it, and if you learned something, or if this was helpful to you in any way. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. Thank you very much. Peace out. Hey guys, this is Mr. High Llama, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching. Please remember to click like and subscribe right underneath the window, and leave a comment too. I want to hear what you have to say, good or bad. Give it to me straight. And tune in next time when we play some more video games, just on a different day.